All right, thanks, Arash. We're just going to get started doing a little overview of EdReady. And if you could just take it away, that'd be great.
All right, thanks, Danny. So, EdReady. EdReady is a new project by the NROC Project, which is a nonprofit organization that builds and distributes high-quality media and solutions, especially for math, but really across a variety of subjects, and already has a presence in the state of Utah. Some of you may be aware of NROC Developmental Math, NROC Algebra. These are courses that you can actually use right now that help students kind of approach math in new ways. And so what we realized is that we had an opportunity to build an application which really kind of takes things to the next level in terms of enabling personalization and giving students a handle on what it is that they need to know in terms of their math to be truly ready for the colleges that they're interested in attending. We have the good fortune to be part of the Utah government-sponsored STEM initiative, and this presentation is here to provide kind of an overview of what EdReady is and how you use it, and really anything else that people may want to know. So what you see here is that EdReady is currently under development. And so we have a splash screen for EdReady where you can see that EdReady is about college readiness, and that EdReady has this capacity to be customized for any given institution that seeks to deploy it. In our case, we are going to review a particular version of EdReady that we've already built with some of our pilot partners up in Montana. We believe this version may be somewhat similar to what we deploy in Utah, and in any case, it'll give you an idea of how EdReady actually works. So once you have your version of EdReady in hand, you'll direct students to it. It'll have a unique URL, and it'll have a landing page like this, which can actually be customized to speak specifically to what you expect those students to see for your version. So in this case, the students are expecting a site that speaks to them about college and career and understands that EdReady is being provided, in this case, by an entity called Montana Digital Academy. This customization element is really important. It allows the entity that's providing EdReady, so whether that might be a teacher or a school or the state, to make sure that what the students experience when they land here is speaking to their specific interests, right, their specific needs. And we found in our work thus far that this really makes a big difference for students persisting with the application. So with that background, I'm just going to walk through what the students actually see when they use EdReady. They would get to the screen and they would sign up. Signing up is free. They create an account. They have to have an account because we store data about them. The data are theirs. They're securely stored and meet all those requirements. Having signed in, a student then has the option to choose schools. This can be customized, so these might be schools specific to the state of Utah, for example, and there are other ways of imagining customization. But the idea here is that students can kind of explore what their options are and make some proactive choices about where they aspire to go. The reason that's important is that these schools don't have the same requirements. So what we're getting at right away is this idea that students have interests, but they don't actually know whether their readiness status might differ depending on which interests they actually indicate. And so we capture some of that information ahead of time, getting them kind of into the right frame of mind about how EdReady might help them. And then later on, they'll see their status in reference to the schools they've chosen. Ultimately, they do land on a page where they see one or perhaps several different readiness assessments that they can pursue. In this case, we're going to just pursue an overarching college math readiness assessment. This assessment covers 18 units. It covers the entire suite of developmental math in the United States. That assessment can be customized. So for teachers and others who are using EdReady, if you don't want to cover all 18 units, or if you already know that all 18 units are not required, you can create shorter assessments and delimit them any number of ways from the unit level to the topic level, even down to individual learning objectives. Regardless, an assessment's chosen and ultimately administered. There's nothing particularly fancy about the assessment. We ask the students to do this initial assessment so we get some kind of a snapshot, an overview of their readiness across the scope of the assessment. The initial assessment is out of the box, is designed to take less than an hour. If you customize it in other ways, it might take longer than that, but that's something that we would work with whoever is actually putting the version of EdReady on designing the assessments for. Ultimately, the students complete the assessment and they get a result. What you see here is they have an EdReady score of 47, and they also have a breakdown of all the units in that assessment and their performance in those units. And you can see that for some of the units, in fact, the majority of the units, they're not ready, or maybe they're partially ready, right? Needs review means that they got some of it right, but they got some of it wrong. You can also see that there's some units here that they actually appear to have done quite well on. We can't declare that they've mastered it because this initial assessment doesn't cover absolutely everything, but it covers enough that it gives us some confidence that there's a good chance they know this material. And so EdReady is going to try to work on the presumption that they don't have to study stuff they appear they already know. They should really focus on the other material. Clicking through, you can see that EdReady provides now their score in context. So what do we mean by that? Well, here's their score of 47. And what you see down here are the schools that were previously chosen. Those are divided into two categories. Some of these schools down here at the bottom, this person, this hypothetical student, Kim Seashore, is already ready for. So for these schools, her score of 47 is already high enough to eclipse the placement score expectations for those schools. That means that if Kim wanted to, right now, she could go ahead and apply to these schools, and presuming she gets in, is likely to pass and exceed any placement expectations that that school might put in front of her, and therefore can just begin her credit-bearing college studies right away. Up here, however, you can see there's a number of schools she was interested in that she's just not ready for. They differ from needing an EdReady score of 60 all the way up to 90. The default up here is to choose the highest school with the highest score. You can toggle this, and so in this case, Kim's gone ahead and decided she's actually more interested in trying to get into the Montana Tech, the University of Montana. The target score here is a 60, and therefore we adjust the number of hours that we estimate accordingly. Having set her expectations, she can now go on and build a study plan. This study plan is in fact specific to Kim and where it is that she wants to go. So the study plan starts off with where she's at with her score of 47. It shows her target, and laid out between the two are the units that she needs to master to raise that 47 to a 60. There's also a bunch of units that she has not mastered, which she really doesn't need to master in order to hit that score. So these things can be adjusted according to whatever the needs are for that student. The first unit pops open to show ratios, rates, and proportions. It itself is subdivided into a set of topics that she needs to study. And at this point, she can dive in, take a more detailed assessment, and ultimately figure out where she really stands in the unit, and indeed for every topic within that unit. Having done that, she can see that she needs to be studying some of this material more. And so she can click on the View Resources tab, and she'll be shown some resource options. In this case, the default resource is the developmental math material that NROC also produces and distributes. And so this material consists of a set of warm-up and practice problems, a video presentation, worked examples, and other media that aren't right here but are available as well. So the student can spend some time, really however they feel they're going to learn this material best, learning it all, ultimately return to EdReady, retest themselves, and watch their score rise. Excuse me. This process iterates until eventually she eclipses the score that she was pursuing. and she'll get a congratulations and be told that at this point we would make a pretty good guess that she can actually go to that school, and any placement exams or other sort of assessments of her readiness that are put in front of her, she'll probably be able to pass them and sufficiently to start taking credit-bearing courses at that school. That's the student experience. Very briefly, EdReady also produces an enormous quantity of data that will be extremely useful, not just for the students, but for any teachers and other administrators that are involved. In this case, we're showing what a teacher might see for the students that that teacher is responsible for. So logging in, a teacher will see an overview screen that gives general activity data, progress data, the median initial score, median score with further study, as well as a breakdown unit by unit of how the class overall appears to be mastering the material. The teacher can also get a student-by-student breakdown of the performance. So in this case, you can see the student names and how much time they spent on the site, how many times they've logged in, and their progress over time, and whether or not they're actually meeting their objectives. Similarly, you can get data student by student for exactly which units they have and have not mastered. All of this information enables teachers to really use the technology to understand exactly where students lie, what kind of progress they're making, and what they need to focus on. And so it is a tool for facilitating personalized learning. That's the overview for EdReady. There are a variety of use cases that EdReady has already been put into play that really bring this personalized learning approach to the college readiness question. And we're happy to talk to anybody further about really any aspects of the application and creating a version of EdReady that really meets your needs.
Great. Thank you, Arash. I know you mentioned the use cases. Without going into a lot of detail, can you just talk about 2 or 3 of those scenarios just to give people a sense of how this is being deployed?
Absolutely. So one use case is for students who have graduated from high school and have an intent to move on to college, but have some prior knowledge that they may not yet be ready. So that might be because they're already aware that they've pulled through math, and so they might be at risk of remediation. It might be because they've already taken some kind of exam or other sort of assessment of their readiness and been told that they're at risk of remediation. There's any number of reasons why that might be true. And so what's happening with that is that in several of our pilots, the placement expectations specific to the institution they want to go to are designated in a version of EdReady. So for example, in the state of Montana, if you are for example, a student that wants to major in a science discipline, say you're interested in going into the medical field, and therefore you know you're going to have to take math, there is a specific set of expectations that you be able to meet a certain score on a placement exam and do so across a certain scope of the curriculum. And so that version of EdReady has a customized scope in the assessment specific to those expectations. And then we've simply matched that expectation to the placement score they're trying to achieve. And the students are alerted by email. This option is available, and they're able to then log on to EdReady wherever they are. It's a cloud-based service, so they can log on at home, at a library, at a school, anywhere that's convenient, and take the time themselves to try to master the material. What we've seen is that many students just seize the moment and will actually persist with it right on through to mastering all of the material on the expected scope, and early returns show very promising results. Students who are then able to go on and take the placement exam and actually meet or exceed the expected placement scores. So that's a good example of the there's a couple of things that I like about that. One is that it really kind of speaks to the whole college readiness frame for students who really understand that there's something at stake, right? So if they don't prepare themselves before they show up in the fall, there's a good chance that they are going to end up in a non-credit bearing course that they nonetheless have to pay for, which will delay them and cost them money and just otherwise is really not an ideal situation. And the other is it really leverages the distribution capability you get with a cloud-based service like EdReady. You know, these students don't have to all come into a classroom, right? They don't have to otherwise be organized in any particular way. They can access Ready wherever it is convenient for them to access it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, these are the kinds of elements that you can bring to bear to kind of customize the EdReady experience in a very
Nice,
useful
nice.
way.
Really, really good points. What about students who are still in high school? Are there any users that fall into that category?
Yeah, so we've seen a couple different use cases in high school. In one case, it's students who actually were just then learning some of this material, meaning they weren't, you know, this wasn't material they were trying to catch up on. This is the first time they might have seen some of it. And the struggle that the teachers were having was in doing differentiated instruction, right? Knowing their students were quite diverse in terms of their prior preparation, it's difficult when you have 30, 40 students in a classroom to treat each of them as an individual and teach each of them according to their exact needs. EdReady can help with that. So by using EdReady, you actually get a really nice picture at a very detailed level of each student's mastery at this, you know, granular level. And then EdReady facilitates the push towards the resources that are appropriate to their needs. And it frees up a teacher to, you know, really kind of be much more flexible about the mode of instruction. If you want, you can be kind of a guide on the side. Students are working with the computers and you're helping them out as needed. But you could also identify that, you know, for example, actually this slide you can still see, you notice in Unit 8, there are quite a few students that still need review in Unit 8, even though they might have mastered later units. This seems like a good opportunity to maybe pull together some or even all of the class and do some additional exercises on that unit where you know full well that they really haven't all got a good grasp on it yet. And so it helps you make those decisions about when do you want to do sort of more cohort-based teaching, when do you want to work with them as individuals, and so on. Another case in high school is for students that are, you know, starting to look ahead towards graduation. Maybe they're interested in going to college, maybe they're not, but really that first kind of barrier they're seeing is graduation. And they understand that there's some kind of an exit exam, or maybe that they're kind of on the edge of really kind of making it through in terms of the math expectations. And even if they're not quite on the edge, it's possible that what they need to graduate from high school is really quite some distance from what's expected to then get into college. And so they might want to know just, you know, where do they stand in that spectrum. And so bringing EdReady to play allows these students to, one, confirm whatever knowledge they have already, two, start to get a handle on their options. So they're really starting to explore, oh, you know, just how much further preparation do I need if I want to go to this institution versus that one, or depending on what I want to study. And then three, will for many of them actually serve as a review vehicle. So even if they've mastered material, it's pretty helpful to go back and double check that, oh yeah, I still remember this stuff. I might have seen it, you know, a couple years ago, but I'm still able to use it. I'm still able to demonstrate my competency. So yeah, lots of good ways to use it that really gives the students this. We talk a lot about empowerment. It really kind of gives the students that sense that they actually have some control, right? Some say in their own fate and an understanding of how to kind of affect it, right, through further study and the choices they make.
Fantastic. Well, that was great. That was a terrific overview. The use cases sound really interesting. Um, just to wrap this up, this has been an overview of the EdReady system, which is a program being designed by the NROC Project. That's THENROC project.org, the NROCproject.org. To find out more information about us and EdReady, you can certainly visit us on the website. And we will be out in Utah doing some training on this program in the next couple of weeks. So thank you, everybody who's listened to this recording, and we hope to reconnect with you in the near future.
Excellent. Thanks as well.